Then, the leaf transforms into a means of transportation. Pisces explains that the space capsule is a new invention she created by combining the properties of science and plant magic. The capsule stores the body, while the magical plant provides the necessary energy. Everyone boards, and the transport slowly takes them to the room. Leaping looks around and comments that it's very stable, and much quieter than the previous mechanical fish. Pisces remembers Wang Kai, acknowledging that his creation was an enthusiastic source of inspiration for her. She also reflects that it was Elizabeth who introduced her to magic, and that the hero's mechanical dog, even after seeing it several times, remains an endless source of creative inspiration. If she's not mistaken, it represents the pinnacle of technology. The little dragon asks her master why she uses that kind of vehicle if she herself is her official mount. Pisces, with the intention of teasing her, says that after all, it's just a means of transport and, of course, can be replaced at any time. Amelia, annoyed by the comment, curses the girl and asks if she dares to take her place, while they both stare at each other tensely. The queen asks them not to waste time and to go to the room at once. Internally, she reflects that once they arrive, no one will be able to interrupt her moment alone with Lepping. Pisces speeds up the flight, and Lepping is impressed to see various attractions along the way. The guide tells them that those are floating islands with different themed hot springs. She informs them that if they want to visit any, they just have to call her. She also indicates that they are already approaching the room assigned to them. Lepping thanks Pisces with a smile, excited by the idea of enjoying the place. Upon arrival, everyone disembarks, and the guide tells them that if they need anything later, they just have to ring the bell in the room and she will come immediately. The hero replies that it's fine, and suggests that she also get some rest, while she begins to leave the place. Lepping looks at the queen and tells her that they've arrived. Elizabeth, slightly blushing, asks what surprise he wants to give her. He replies that she'll know soon, but first they have to go inside. At the same time, he thinks he should tell her at the most romantic moment. He takes her hand, and they enter the dimensional room together. Once inside, the hero is amazed by the interior. The queen sees the bed and reflects that she has already guessed the surprise, that tonight will be the key moment to take a big step in their relationship. She begins to imagine the intimate scene between them, until Amelia interrupts the fantasy by jumping onto the bed, saying it's very comfy and pleasant, and that tonight she will sleep there with her master. With a smile, she says that she's very happy, but that happiness doesn't last long. Suddenly, a blue light envelops her and she disappears, being absorbed by a somewhat familiar object. Lepping is surprised and asks if that isn't the small model he had built some time ago and left on the table. The queen, putting the Pokeball into her backpack, replies that it's nothing important. She just thought it would be convenient to bring it, as it can store Amelia's contract inside, which is very useful. Then she approaches him, hugs him, and asks him not to talk about anything else because now they are completely alone. They kiss passionately and begin to grow more intimate. Until someone arrives. It's Annie, who interrupts the loving couple. Upon seeing them, she greets them politely. Lepping, slightly blushing, returns the greeting and asks why she's in their room. The girl replies that since she knows nothing about architecture or construction, she volunteered to clean. She was just cleaning the bathroom. The hero understands, but tells her it wasn't necessary, and that from now on, he'll handle the cleaning himself. Annie, confused, asks if she did something wrong. She reflects that the bed is already unmade, even though they haven't slept yet, and wonders if they weren't satisfied with her work. Then she apologizes and explains that she tried to imitate Lepping's sewing techniques for the bed, the sheets, and the pillows, but she knows there's a big difference. Still, if they're not satisfied, she can redo them and asks for a chance to fix it. Lepping tells her it's not necessary, that she did very well, but she just arrived at an inconvenient moment. At that moment, the queen yells for her to stop, scaring both Lepping and Annie. She slowly approaches the girl and asks how many times they're going to repeat that scene, and if they're not bored of it. Annie, nervous about the approach, insists that she doesn't understand if she did something wrong. The queen places her hand on Annie's head and asks if she wants a blessing. She explains that for something so simple, she doesn't need Lepping to teach her anything, because she, as the demon queen, will take care of it. She then activates her power, the Demon King's blessing, which causes a complete transformation in Annie. Lepping watches in astonishment and asks if she'll be okay, seeing that the power granted completely transforms her physique. Elizabeth has fully activated Jimji's lineage within Annie. The hero, surprised, asks her if she feels okay, while reflecting that Elizabeth helped Annie evolve. He finds it incredible. The queen explains that she has awakened all the power of her lineage and orders her to leave and learn to control it by herself. Annie is left confused, not understanding what's happening. But Elizabeth has no patience. Using her power, she makes Annie's broom fly through the air, throwing her away, telling her to stop saying nonsense and to leave, expelling her far from the room. Once Annie is gone, Elizabeth comments with satisfaction that she finally has some peace. Then she turns and, with an intense gaze, tells Lepping that now it's his turn. The young man, confused, asks her to wait a bit and not be so impulsive, while slowly stepping back. Until he bumps into the bed. Elizabeth, seeing that he can't escape anymore, asks if he knows how long she's waited for this moment. She gently pushes him onto the bed, moves even closer, and says that now no one can interrupt them. Already on top of him, she demands that he stop stalling and asks where the surprise he prepared for her is. Lepping, nervous about the situation and her closeness, wonders if she has discovered his plan to propose. But his thoughts are interrupted when the queen firmly demands that he give her the surprise right now, getting even closer. After hearing those words, the action began to take shape. Each moment made Elizabeth wrap Lepping with love and tenderness, until their lips joined in a soft, delicate, almost eternal kiss. But in the midst of that joy, the hero stopped. He held the queen by her arms, and with a trembling yet firm voice, confessed that he could not continue yet. Elizabeth, with her heart racing and her gaze wounded, asked in surprise if perhaps he did not desire her. The man, looking at her with devotion, replied that of course he desired her with all his being, but he did not want their union to happen at that moment. For him, everything followed a sacred plan. He wanted to give his queen the most eternal memory, the purest gift, and only after declaring marriage, as her fiancé, could he fully surrender. Triumph was near, and he wondered what mattered waiting a little longer if perfection could be achieved that way. Elizabeth, blushing, whispered if perhaps he had not liked seeing her on top of him, and if that was the reason, then she could remain below. Lepping, surprised, replied quickly that of course he enjoyed having her over him, but that was not what he meant. He took his beloved's hand, and with a luminous seriousness in his eyes, begged her to listen. He explained that it was like the creation of a cake. For it to be perfect, no step could fail. First, the ingredients are mixed, then they are baked with patience, then the cream is spread evenly, and finally it is decorated with precision, placing in every detail the soul itself. Only then, he said, a perfect cake is obtained. Some might think that eating each thing separately would be the same, but for him it was not, because even if a single step failed, the result would no longer be perfect. He admitted that perhaps she saw him as a stubborn and overly traditional man, but all he wanted was for her to understand the sincerity of his heart. When he finished, Lepping thought that this was also his strength, the firmness of a man who believes in pure love. He imagined the whole path they had traveled step by step until reaching that moment in which their souls were about to unite. He firmly believed that only when body and spirit merged into one could they reach absolute pleasure. Elizabeth, while listening to him, realized that she had been about to let herself be carried away by desire. She understood the metaphor of the cake. For her, that sweet, worked by Lepping's divine hands, was proof of an authentic brilliance. She imagined the whole scene while her thoughts ignited. She felt that this time she would be the ingredient, and that he would cook her with his supreme law. Rather, from the day their paths crossed, every step taken with him had been essential. She dreamed that everything would culminate with a strawberry resting on her, while Lepping leaned in and asked her not to move. He could not fail. He longed to savor her when all her essence reached its most intense point. In her mind, intimacy blossomed with a burning radiance, elevated to the peak of the sublime. Then, with a serene voice, Elizabeth said that she understood and that she would wait. Leping contemplated her, convinced that she had accepted his plea. Although she was a queen, he discovered in her a tender, delicate, attentive woman. For her part, Elizabeth looked at him and, upon hearing his words, understood that it was not bad at all. Whether in body or in spirit, she knew that he wanted to help her rise even higher. Only that way, she thought, could they conceive the strongest child. After a few seconds, they both take off their clothes, revealing their swimsuits, ready to enjoy the hot springs. Leping announces enthusiastically that the fun is about to begin. Before opening the door, he remembers what Pisius explained. First, they have to pull the lever, and the magic door will generate a random number. Upon opening it, they will be taken to the corresponding thermal island. With so many possible scenarios, he admits that the system is quite a surprise for the indecisive. Finally, luck takes them to a water park. The hero celebrates excitedly. It was exactly what he wanted. But when he climbs the slide, he discovers something intimidating. It is extremely tall and full of curves. Leping, surprised, quickly asks Elizabeth if they can change the scenario. The queen, without losing her composure, asks him to stop talking and go down immediately. The hero, somewhat nervous, tries to negotiate, but she pushes him with her body. They fall together, embraced. Leping screams while Elizabeth smiles calmly, enjoying the moment. Suddenly, the hero's expression changes and he admits with excitement that this is really thrilling. Elizabeth watches him and wonders how he manages to enjoy the creations of mortals so naturally. She imagines the hero as a god taking another form and remembers how he put aside his status to help the people of the kingdom of Aristodes. She reflects, even though she has ascended to sainthood, she must also learn to descend to the world, to observe the small things, absorb them, and transform them into nourishment for herself. She knows the theory, but finds it hard to let go of her superiority. However, Leping, through his example, shows her it is possible. Perhaps she too can set aside her status, return to zero, and continue refining herself in this imperfect world. After this thought, they both begin to scream and finally reach the end of the slide. But the fun doesn't end. They continue playing in the water, laughing and enjoying each other's company. Elizabeth understands the lesson he wants to teach her, which is to enjoy the simplest happiness. Hand in hand, they walk toward an elephant sculpture, hiding beneath it, and from any gaze as they embrace and kiss, letting passion rise second by second. After the kiss, Leping looks at her and sincerely says that he likes her very much. Elizabeth, blushing, responds that she also likes him, while feeling the flame of her love reignite strongly, spreading throughout her body. Suddenly, she notices something rigid bumping against her leg and curiously asks what that is. Leping freezes. The engagement ring he had forgotten in his pocket is now in plain sight. But the atmosphere is perfect. With his heart pounding, he decides that maybe this is the right moment to propose marriage. He begins to speak, but the words get stuck, stuttering with each syllable as he struggles to express everything he feels.